I mean, because traditionally, women are a little bit older when they run for office also. You know, kids grown if they have kids. Anna, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, and
Go.
the thing I'd add is not only does it require sacrifice, but it also requires to ask the people who love us to make sacrifices. And sometimes that's a lot harder than any sacrifice that one makes.
Good point, and it's why we're going to let you go in 15 minutes to celebrate the birthday of your significant other. So, Debra.
I actually want to add a different note to this, which is that I think that the political world is actually more forgiving than you might think of needing to attend to family matters. I just spent most of the month of January in Arizona because my stepmom, who had severe dementia, was diagnosed with acute lymphoma right after Christmas. And I spent 4 weeks in Arizona participating in my own family's hospice work with her. And I did the same in 1995. I spent 6 weeks in Illinois after my father had nearly died. And I was just there. And that's what I did. So I think, but I always thought, I mean, I particularly thought in January about the many families who take in a family member who has Alzheimer's or severe dementia, and for whom there is not the kind of accommodation, and part of it for me was just the luck of timing. January is not a busy time in the Secretary of State's office. But they take women around the state, and families take care of a family member with severe disabilities, with Alzheimer's, with dementia, a child with autism, and they do that on top of everything else they do. So I don't want to put us as women in politics really on any different footing than women and men around the state who have just intense and conflicting needs when it comes to family. In fact, I feel blessed to have been in a position where I was able to be there. But I have also made the decision not to run at times. I chose not to run for Congress in 1998 because my foster daughter was pregnant with her first baby, and I had the DCCC offering me all the money I could eat, so to speak, and I said, no, I'm not going to be gone for that event in that kind of a year. I don't think it's fundamentally that much different when it comes to the big things. The difference is when it comes to the small stuff, the flute concerts, all of the kinds of things that are hard to do when you're just physically in a different location.
Thank you for sharing that. Carolyn, you wanted to jump in, and then I'll go to you.
Well, I was just going to add a slightly different perspective, because while, with all due respect, that may be an opportunity for elected persons to take that time on my side of the aisle or my side of the building, if you're going to remain relevant, you better be there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be different for you in October than it would be in March. I mean, you might be able to do that in October, but not in March.
Correct.
And I would have had a very different decision if that had happened in the month before the 2008 presidential election. It would have been a much more challenging decision to make.
Right, I would agree.
Mariko, did you want to?
Sure, I'll jump in here. For me, my elected service has come more recently. I've only served in elected office now for a total of 6 years. So I was a staffer prior to my election to the Yolo County Board of Supervisors, and I believe it was Debra Bowen that somewhat described one of her elections as accidental or maybe unplanned. Both of my decisions to run for public office were somewhat accidental. So I think that in terms of sacrifice, again, I say as a social worker, I think our profession is one that identifies a lot with sacrifice. I prefer to call it service. and what motivates us to put ourselves out there and to serve the community. You know, I look back to my parents and grandparents and think how different their lives were than mine, and I would not have this life without their sacrifice. So I feel an obligation to continue, and so that our children and all of our children and grandchildren and our elders can be served and protected. But you know, I took care of my mom for about 23 years, and if she were still alive today, I'm not sure that I would have made the decision to run for the assembly. My race, and I believe Gale Kaufman, I think I can say this now, I would not be here without Gale Kaufman's assistance to our campaign through an independent expenditure. I actually didn't really meet Gale Kaufman. I couldn't talk to her at that time, but I didn't meet her until well after. And I also just lost whom I call Yoda, Bill Cavala, who was my political consultant and kind of took me on, I think really sort of worrying about me and feeling a little sorry for me that I had decided to jump into this race with $10,000 in the bank and Dave Jones. That's all I had, you know, running against a guy who had $450,000 in the bank and 100 endorsements. But, you know, you do things maybe, again, as I say, not so much out of sacrifice, but out of a sense of duty and obligation. And I really felt that it was a time that, you know, whether I won or lost, it was important to provide a choice to the people. And, you know, whether I had won or lost, I would have felt good about that. So it's not always about sacrifice. It's it's sometimes also about what you feel is a duty or an obligation or a responsibility to the community. So, thanks.
Lovely. Anybody else on sacrifice? Okay. So I have a young woman in my office who helped me with this question, saying feminism has played a huge role in bringing equality to women. However, to a new generation of young people, feminism or feminists have become negative words. Young women struggle to define a line between feminism and femininity. Is there a line? Do feminine characteristics go against the feminist credo? And I want to add one piece to this. She also added that she's now with the second boyfriend in her life who has expressed concerns that she's too driven in her job and that it's interfering with the relationship. So, any comments or reaction?
Who's going to answer that?
She needs a third boyfriend.
The answer was she needs a third boyfriend. I kind of agree. But I mean, you know, have we arrived? You know, are we here? Was all that struggle that came before? Because we have, you know, young women in the audience who weren't around during those years and kind of say, what is that all about? You know, we're here, we've arrived, everything's fine.
I think it's unfortunate that there is some sort of division between feminine and being a feminist and being a strong woman and an attractive woman. You can be strong and you can be attractive.
I think all of you are an example of that.
I don't think that being a feminist is, you know, burning a bra or that we're never wearing makeup or all of that. I think those things are silly distractions. And I think, you know, I started life in television, and believe me, the femininity side mattered more than the journalism side, to be quite honest. But
still does, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think that women are now freer to be who they are. You know, if they want to wear mini skirts and a lot of makeup, they can do that. And if they don't have to do it either, and they can still succeed. And it's not, I don't think, an impediment to get ahead in politics. I think There are a lot of very attractive women in politics, and there are some,
But what
less
about
attractive
Ginger?
women in
What?
politics. So what?
It,
And then there are a lot of ugly men, right, who get along.
and it probably hasn't hurt them in their love life.
Yes.
But what about, so it hasn't stopped women, from being successful in politics. Does it get in the way of personal life?
Does what get in the way?
Being a strong woman, being dedicated to career, does it mess with personal life?
Yes.
Yes, Deborah?
Yeah.
I mean, it really is a personal choice for every person of either gender to make about who is the appropriate partner for them. I mean, I'm certain that there are many men who've had wives or girlfriends tell them, you're too wrapped up in your career, you don't pay enough attention to me. I mean, I'm certain that that's not an unusual thing to have happen. And then I'm sure that it works the other way, too, where people of whatever gender in whatever relationship are told, you just don't have enough drive. You're just not that into it, whatever it is. So that's one that I think is just not any different with politics than it is with anything else. The kind of sacrifice that it makes, the sense that you can't go anywhere without bumping into someone you know is another matter entirely. And something that a spouse or partner can easily tire of.
You're talking about loss of privacy when you're in public
the
office?
loss of privacy.
That's why you
Right.
go grocery shopping at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, right. I
Right.
mean, you just want to go to the grocery store and get, something like really healthy, like a thing of Oreos. And, there's undoubtedly going to be 4 people who are looking in your shopping cart and don't say anything to you, and then the one person who says, "Are you Debra Bowen?" No, I don't know who she is. No, so that lack of privacy, and I think California is so big that we suffer from that a lot less than people who are in politics in New Hampshire, smaller communities. And but if I think about it, no paparazzi follow any of us around that I know of. So there are plenty of professions where that's a much bigger issue.
But they do follow Schwarzenegger, and they did follow Jerry Brown when he was a young hard body, and they just, they did.
I think they're
No,
following
that's-
David Patterson right now in New
Yeah.
York, but for different
We'll
reasons. But
we'll have to check our Twitter count, right? How many people are following us? If I may just chime in, of course, I'm not saying this just because my husband is in the audience. Somehow we've managed to support each other for the past 28 years, and I don't think any of us can take any relationship or friendship for granted. But I would use Alicia Keys' statement or her song, which is real man knows a real woman when he sees one. So, right? Can I get a witness? Okay. So, I think it's really all about you find your comfort zone. And the young woman in your office, Laura, I would
You have
say.
advice for her?
Yeah,
Third boyfriend,
Right.
okay.
Sorry, whoever the second one
Be
is.
who you are and go for it.
Yeah.
Good
pretty
advice.
much.
So, I forgot to warn all of you, but I know you are not a shy audience. I'm about to end the panel discussion because my experience doing these panels is that the audience almost always has questions, not statements, but questions that you want to ask. We have a microphone to bring around to you. If you don't have questions, I have more. But often this is the very best time to open it up to you all who are here with interest, and do not disappoint me and show me you are shy. So any questions, just raise your hand and we're going to come around with a mic. And here's one right here, this lady in the green.
Hello.
Yeah.
I want to throw myself under the bus as the young woman in Laura's office, but I'd also like to say, my boyfriend will not know about this broadcast, and also, the conversation started because it was, Laura chick this and Laura chick that. Should I be jealous here? And that's how the conversation started. And I said, well, I really like her. What do you expect from me?
I'll have to meet this guy.
Yeah, third boyfriend for sure.
Is it on?
Is this thing on?
Yeah, it is.
I wanted to know what the panel thought about Carly Fiorina's Demon Sheep ad.
Ah. Maybe Gale.
I
this
know
is your
some of you have
business.
seen it.
Well, yeah. The demon sheep.
Am I putting you on the spot?
Are you asking because you somehow think it's?
I'm just curious. I'm just curious what you
sexist
think about
thing,
it.
or
I don't know
just
if
in
anyone in the audience has seen it. It's kind of gone viral.
Well,
it's about 3
I
minutes
actually
long.
thought I was surprised that it got so much attention because I thought it was kind of cheesy and really. I know it got a lot of attention because it was weird, and I really thought it was weird and kind of off point. There's a viral ad. I mean, there's an ad that was put together by the Carly Fiorina campaign. It's a long ad, though, so it's only you can only see it online. And it's against Tom Campbell, who's a more moderate candidate running in the state Senate. I mean, in the U.S. Senate race.
As both as Republican.
Both as Republicans, and I just found it really kind of weird. And if that's the best that we're doing
There's no
this
way
time,
to describe it.
Yeah, you have to
You
see
have to
it.
see it to believe
Yeah.
No, you should see it. Yeah.
Here's several people over here.
Hi.
Hello? Okay. Hi. I have a question with regard to the U.S. Senate, and maybe California could be helpful with that. We have about, I believe, 17 or 18 women senators right now, none of whom are ethnic minorities. And as California becomes more ethnically diverse, I'm curious if you all see that there's a particular challenge for women of color who are attempting to run for various offices. For anybody who would like to answer.
I mean, I'm just going to start off by saying just the fact that there are so few, I think would speak that it's not easy. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
Funds.
Yeah, and fundraising is an ongoing challenge and impediment to get more women candidates.
Well, oh, go ahead, please.
Well, and I would just state, while I don't believe that this applies to our California U.S. senators, I think for the most part, women don't ask for money the same way men do when they're raising funds to run for office. Women are much more comfortable asking for money for someone else than they are for themselves.
Right.
So, but I do believe both our U.S. senators are very good fundraisers.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's an issue
You have a fundraising ask right now in your office from them. Right?
Yeah, I don't know that it's an issue of ethnicity as much as gender. And when I was first a candidate in '93, running against a 16-year incumbent as a total unknown, what helped me the most was some experience in retail sales. And I knew I was selling myself, and that's the way I thought about it. I was selling a product that I knew well. I believed in myself. I saw the advantages of me over the other candidates, and I learned how to close. You got to learn how to close. I was told once, don't bother trying to raise money from women. It'll take you 2 hours to get a $100 check. And I ignored that advice and had a women's event and raised over $35,000. So I think we have to ignore those stereotypes and prove them wrong. There's no reason why it should be harder for us to ask for money. I mean, we're passionate. We believe in ourselves. We believe in causes. Deborah.
Well, I actually think that it is more difficult, and fundraising is partly about how much chutzpah you have.
Yeah.
And one of the other studies from Rutgers shows that women tend to spend a lot of time thinking about whether or not they're qualified for the position they're thinking about, while men spend very little time thinking about that. So by the time you decide that you want to go, he has, $500,000 in the bank or whatever it is. But so we are more self-critical.
Definitely.
Again, this is studies out of Rutgers, so This is not my own observations. But also, it's the networking. Who did you know? What neighborhood did you grow up in? What people do you already know? That was actually a much bigger issue before there were any contribution limits, because one or two extremely wealthy people could fund, an entire campaign. And now, unless the candidate is the extremely wealthy person, which is yet another issue, that's not possible. But in order to raise funds, you first have to be able to get in the door, past whoever it is that's screening calls or email. You have to be able to make the contact. And there's, I think, no doubt that we tend to take, all of us as human beings, tend to take calls from people we already know before we take cold calls from somebody who we perceive as selling us something who we've never met before.
But
so.
She asked a different question.
Okay.
She talked about color. And I think that is the elephant in the room here. And I want to talk about it for a minute because I feel like I'm sort of up here in Fulton,